My name is Oleksii Sobolev. I'm right now Deputy Minister of Economy, and before that I worked for 6-7 years building Prozoro Sale, world's most transparent electronic auction system. And before that I was advisor to the Minister of Infrastructure, and before that we had the Revolution of Dignity, and before that for 7 years I was a portfolio manager at a hedge fund.
You gave up a very lucrative career to go into politics.
To go into public management, I would say, yeah.
And we spoke to Max Nefodiev yesterday, who set up Prozoro.
Yeah.
What is Prozoro Sale?
Yeah, it's the other, like the inverse Prozoro. So basically, Prozoro is procurement, where the government or municipalities have to buy something. They use Prozoro to procure stuff, and Prozoro Sale are all the other auctions. Usually, where the government needs to sell anything, to license anything, to lease out anything, it uses Prozoro Sale, and also municipalities and also businesses. So it's like a big auction, electronic auction marketplace, very, very transparent.
Does Prozoro literally mean transparent?
Yeah, in Ukrainian. Yeah.
Okay. Does any other country have anything like this?
Probably not, and we won a bunch of awards. Just last year, during the invasion, UN awarded us like Best Public Service of the Year. And the guys from Prozoro Sale need to go pick it up in China this year, because the last year ceremony was online because of COVID, and this year they need to go there. And right now we're asking our Ministry of Exterior, should we go to China? And said, yeah, well, if that's promoting your country, then it's okay. So yeah, the things changing.
And I read on Facebook that you're a strong believer in the importance of a high trust society and wanting to move Ukraine in general to a high trust society. What needs to be in place for that to happen?
Well, historically, we're a low trust country, and there are multitude of reasons. First, we were conquered by Russia for several centuries, and the power, people in power were always foreign. That's how you don't have that trust between the civil society and the government, because it's like a foreign power. We had 30 years of independence, and just recently, so after the Revolution of Dignity, which was 8 years ago, the government implemented, and the reformers implemented decentralization reform, when they gave a lot of power from the central government to the regions, and with it the finances. And so it worked really well. Why do I know that? Because in all the surveys, right now the trust that the public trusts is of course the army, then the church, but on the third place, the only thing that growing in trust over the last 5 years are regional authority. Because people understand that they can go to the mayor has the finances to deal with their stuff. So it actually increases trust, and there's lots of economic reason why trust decreases, like transaction cost, meaning it is easier to do business against one another, right? So you don't need so many lawyers and to do transactions. So and economy is booming because of that. And our Prozoro Sale is built on trust. So it is 100% transparent. You can see, after the auction is completed, you can see all the data, all the documents. You can see the signed contracts. So for example, all oil and gas licenses in Ukraine, they done through this platform. So it's not like in any other country. In your countries, probably if people are watching from UK, US, you can't really check who owns the assets and how they got these licenses. So in Ukraine you can. And it builds trust and makes it easier to do business in countries like Ukraine, where there were initially low trust.
Is that going to help get in private investment in Ukraine after the war?
Probably, I hope so. I really hope so. So we on Prozoro Sale there are foreign investors as well, and it is very business friendly, and it enables the government to do business with the business, because it's a intermediary, very transparent intermediary. So it allows the government to do transactions. So basically, the problem is not corruption, but the inability of the government to actually execute anything, because in the government, discretion is not that great. Well, what I mean by that is that if you do a deal, sell any real estate to anyone, then law enforcement can come and question you. So like, why did you sell for this price to that guy? And kind of as a civil servant, you don't want like law enforcement coming to you and making questions. That's how you refuse any kind of discretion. You need rules, right? And that's how when you implement electronic system and auction, the auction shows you the price and the buyer, and you didn't do anything. And that's how like civil servants said, okay, yeah, let's do that. We can sign these contracts, because like whenever anyone questions us, why did you sell to that guy? There's also like a record there, and anyone could check, and anyone could come to this auction. So that allowed the civil servants to actually do deals and generate a lot of money. So Prozoro sale generated 80 billion of hryvnias, which is like 40 million for $400 million to different budgets.
Wow! In what time period? Since it
Over
was
the 6 years, yeah, that is operating, yeah, and like probably 20 of them over the last 3 years. So yeah.
Mike said that he doesn't want Ukraine to be seen as a charity case. He wants it to be a strong country that can help other countries. Is Prozoro sell technology that you could sell to other countries or license to other countries?
Yeah, definitely. Well, it's open source, so anyone could copy that. So the idea that it should be transparent, and even the code should be transparent, so no one could dispute it, right? So there's like, if you hide something, some people would say, yeah, there's a hidden button, so you say that this guy won and not that guy. And we say, no, the code is open. You can see that the system running on this code, and there's no way you can do that, and you can check that, right? But then, like the governments and the people want to need to want to implement that. So we can actually, like, if you call on us, and the ministry would be very happy to, and we're actually talking to some Middle Asia countries and African countries to help them with this tool. And that's how we see Ukraine as a sandbox, you know, like for also digital solutions on a like quite large scale. We're a 40 million people country, so that's a lot, right? So we can check stuff here and say, yeah, this works, and then ship to other country where they have similar problems.
And yesterday, Max said that people think of Ukraine's fight against Russia as a fight for freedom, but perhaps a more useful way of seeing it is that Putin is trying to create a low-trust global economy, and that actually this is partially a fight for a high-trust global economy.
Well, I don't know, this is like a very like highbrow way to put it, no? I don't know, I guess it is also true, like, right, there are many dimensions to what is happening, and of course, and like regarding that, I can say that in my opinion, you know, that this idea that Ukraine is corrupt, so part of this corruption is definitely like Russian special operation. So like you can actually see that it's happening, kind of how the government is sanctioning entities, and how these entities like are have assets, and some of them had TV channels. So kind of this whole idea and this whole narrative was in part like just a Russian special operation, and it is easier for them to control societies or like organizations through corruption. And as you know, like, and also there are questions to the European countries, right? So how Russia influences them, of course, through kind of black cash. So that's how, yeah, they sow distrust. And one way to do that through like war, like kinetic war, the other way through like cyber war, or like economic war or corruption war. So that's what they've been doing for quite a while.
So the reason I asked about it is because Ukraine is dependent on American arms more than other countries. And then some people in the US are saying that the US has problems with debt and it can't afford to be funding a war in Ukraine, and they're just being isolationist. But on a country level, if someone takes something and then there's no repercussions for them stealing it, that creates a low trust environment. And then, as you said, low trust is very bad for business, so it's bad for the economy. So then surely on a global level, if Putin takes something of Ukraine's and then he gets to keep it, surely this is actually hugely economically damaging for the whole world, and that therefore the US funding Ukraine's war is a very good investment in future global business. Is that a reasonable analysis?
Yeah, yeah. I guess this is quite sound, and it is. It's not just there are repercussions of this war already, right? So it just shows that you can just invade your neighbor in Europe, and right now we're fighting of like, is this person going to be punished for that or not, right? So like if kind of we fail, all us, I say, like people who watching this as well, and there are no kind of repercussions for Putin for doing this kind of invasion, the whole world becomes much more insecure, right? But still right now it's also like other countries, what they think, right? They think they need to invest more in military, right? And taking from all the civil the budget from all the, like, I don't know, civil infrastructure things that were, or like education or medicine, right? Healthcare. So what they were spending, and putting that into military. So that will definitely be happening. And also the other part is that people, what they understand is that your trading partner could be invaded, right? And which means that you have to have some kind of stocks of whatever you were trading with. So before we were living in this age of globalization, and throughout my whole life, I thought that, you know, like the world trade would just increase, right? And we will be more and more integrated. And I feel that the trend has changed, and we kind of becoming slightly less integrated. And this will take, I don't know how many years, but might be kind of, we've seen the peak of globalization for us as, you know, as people of like 30, 40 years. And throughout the next like 20, 30, 40 years, we'll see globalization kind of diminish.
But that started with COVID, so that actually predates the war, right?
No, it actually started in, if you look, well, how do you measure globalization? So if you look at the global trade to GDP, that's kind of a percentage. So basically on the peak was in 2008. Of course, probably some part of it was a bubble, but it was around like 60%, something above that. So, well, imagine that like 2/3 of whatever people were having were produced elsewhere. So this is like quite unusual way of actually, you know, like owning things, and understanding that, okay, yeah, it's okay for us to have things that can come from all the other places. And since then it has been gradually decreasing. Of course, COVID kind of did, but did decrease a lot. But right now it's around 56%, and it rebounded, but still kind of lower than before COVID. And I guess this trend is to continue. So, which means that we should be thinking of, you know, like everybody was thinking that, yeah, the global trade is just growing, so we integrate to other countries. And right now everybody's thinking, okay, yeah, we should integrate locally, or I don't know, like have reliable partners, or produce by ourselves, because there would be some supply chain disruptions, something like that.
Do you think a victory in Ukraine would increase globalization at all, or would it just slow down a pre-existing trend?
Yeah, well, I think it will definitely slow down. So kind of the thing that if we lose, and like it would be much worse. I mean, this whole, because
this is going to be the quote of the interview. If we lose, it'll be much worse. I think this is uncontroversial.
Yeah, yeah.
But sorry, continue.
No, but I mean, so like Europe will be much less secure.
Right.
Because kind of right now, okay, we're not part of Europe, and we're not part of NATO yet, and kind of having like, imagine if Putin was successful and took over the country, right? So the next border is NATO, is Poland and Romania, right? And Putin has not just 140 million of his own people, but like 40 million Ukrainians extra, right? And yeah, this is the huge threat, and the whole Europe will be shattered, you know, like, and with that, it is unclear whether this kind of balance of power that US is so heavily involved would actually, maybe like the isolationists in US would say, why bother? Kind of Europe can handle it themselves, and they wouldn't interfere. So it would be a much less secure world, and also it would embolden China to do the same for Taiwan, and then all our microchips come from Taiwan, and so like actually your iPhone, right, could have non-existed had Putin took us over. So there are lots of like different things, and like somehow in Ukraine, you like it is good to understand it because your life kind of depends on it, and like you're making decisions on all these like very global themes.
So the way to get rich teenagers in Western countries to care about it is for them to realize that victory in Ukraine means increases China's likelihood to invade Taiwan, which raises the cost of that iPhone.
Yeah, it doesn't raise the cost of iPhone. You will not have your iPhone.
Oh, it gets rid of it altogether.
Well, kind of like, okay, the supply chain of the chips to your iPhone will be broken for quite some time.
Wow.
Right. So just, and then, okay, like imagine China is emboldened and it invades Taiwan, which means that kind of US probably would broke ties with China, and all the Apple factories are still in China. And so there would definitely be no iPhones and probably no MacBooks and whatever else electronic that you have. So it is good to have this kind of balance of power, that it is beneficial to show that no, you can't really invade other countries, and get on with it. And the first thing that you kind of learn from our situation is that how the world react to Crimea when Russia took over Crimea was actually bad, because like nobody did anything that much, and probably that emboldened Russia, and here we are right now. And the economic costs of war. So it is true that most arms come from US, and and Britain is the next, and but then if you look, we're fighting Russia with mostly like 80s equipment. Right, like some has been extensively modernized, but many of them are like 80s equipment that needs to be getting rid of. So there are lots of like costs to actually can dispose it, and right now you can dispose it in Ukraine and save millions of lives. I don't know, like this is the best I guess like economic opportunity, and then
just to explain that, so the US has some equipment from the 1980s that would have to pay to dispose of otherwise, because it's due for decommissioning, and they get to give it to Ukrainians instead of pay someone to get rid of it.
Yeah, and then what you do, and you you replace it with your new stuff. And how do you replace it? By spending on this new stuff. And how do you do that? Like people in the US produce it, so these are jobs, and it's not like you ship tens of billions of weapons in Ukraine and don't get anything in return. No, you get jobs in US producing like newer stuff, and I guess this is okay.
Forgive this very basic question, but can you explain two things which are going to be very obvious to you but might not be super obvious to people who are not so familiar with Putin? So one is, some people in the West might think something like, oh, I remember reading in Tolstoy some characters are visiting Crimea, or in some Chekhov short stories, surely that used to be Russia, isn't it okay for Russia to get it back? And then the second is, hold on, surely Putin will not invade another country after the disaster of invading Ukraine. Why would he do that? That would be crazy. That sounds implausible. Could you correct those two misconceptions?
Okay, yeah, well, Crimea, in Ukraine, we think Crimea belongs to Crimean Tatars, and like the Kirimli, the original like Aboriginal people who were exiled by Stalin, like in 1944, I guess. So
exiled from Crimea,
from
not to
Crimea,
Crimea,
right? And then kind of they came back, and right now they're also exiled again by Russia, like after the invasion. So because they're very pro-Ukraine, and this is their land. So
right. So they're the native people of the
Crimea.
peninsula,
Yeah.
who are pro-Ukrainian.
Yeah, and that's there. But I mean, it is like history of Russian Crimea is not very recent history, but still, I mean, this is not like we're not fighting about the history, right? And if you're talking about, okay, yeah, there are some people in Crimea who actually want to be in Russia. Yeah, there's some city in Sevastopol where the Russian fleet is, and kind of the people in this city are actually kind of relatives of the sailors on those ships. Those ships right now like kind of bomb Kyiv and all else. So this was a good idea to get rid of those ships, but it never materialized. But then this is if you look at the surveys pre-annexation. So that's where the majority of people wanted to be with Russia are just one city. It is like fairly big for the peninsula, and the rest is mostly like Ukrainian or favoring Ukraine. So it was not like the rest is like propaganda that you see,
Right.
that it's like very Russian. And the other question is that like why Putin would invade other country. There's this guy called Peter Zion. He's a geopolitical strategist, and he has like really great books. And in books he has like even better charts
Okay.
that
We'll put them in the
shows,
video.
yeah, that kind of the lay of the land here. And the thing is that how he describes this conflict, and he predicted this conflict in 2014. He actually said that after 2020 Russia would go like full out war into Ukraine. So because Russia is an enormous country, and the secret is that nobody actually lives there. So if you look at you just Google map of population density in Russia, it's a kind of archipelago
Right.
of some small settlements across the huge territory, and then some like big chunks of people living like near Moscow and St. Petersburg, and that's it. So which means that Russia can't really protect its whole border. So like, and the way it kind of protects the territory is expanding the most it can be to the choke points, to the corridors.
Right.
And one is in Romania, in Romania near Carpathian Mountains. The other one is in Poland, like on the other side of Carpathian Mountains, and another one is on Caucasus. How do you say that?
Caucasus.
Caucasus, yeah, the one in Caucasus. So, like, if you look at the history of Russia and like 500 years of all the invasions, they came through certain routes. There are like 16 corridors. And what USSR did, it kind of expanded to shut down these corridors, and you put your bases there, and that's how you kind of protect the core. So this is the idea, which means like which leads to this the thing that Ukraine is just the start. So in order to close the corridor, it will have to conquer the Baltics and part of Poland. And in the southern corridor, it would have to conquer like Moldova and part of Romania. And if you look at all the frozen conflicts that Russia did, like the Georgian one, there are like at the corridors. So this is the strategy, like the Russia will do that forever if it exists, like this huge Russia, because it just doesn't feel secure. But like in no way you can execute that without subjugating like 200 million people. So but Russia still kind of tries. That's how, like, had Ukraine failed, right, the next war is going to be like war with NATO, and probably nobody wants that. So that's why I guess it is more beneficial for US to help us right now and kind of fight Russian with the 80s equipment instead of having like a full Russia-NATO war if we fail.
Right. It's expensive, but it's not as expensive as kicking the can down the road and then dealing with a larger problem later.
Yeah.
Has Putin made public statements about, expanding Russia? I haven't read all of his speeches or articles historically. I know he has talked about invading Ukraine for quite a while, but it's one of those things where people don't listen to what a dictator's saying until they actually act it out.
There are a lot of like scientific political literature that looks at how like dictators behave in like across the history and at different stages of like dictatorship development.
Right.
So, and there's a high statistical chance that really long time, like 20 years plus dictatorship, ends in the big war, just because as dictator stays in power, it becomes more and more isolated and more people around him. So he kind of kicks out all the people who say no.
Right.
So everybody says yes, and this is a great idea, whatever. And this kind of cycle, you know, leads up to this idea, okay, I'm very great, I can start the war and kind of get on with it. And he was lucky, like with the Crimea, right? And he thought, okay, yeah, I can do that second time. But it's mean like for dictatorship, it is very typical, and there's like high statistical probability. And the other thing that if there is some kind of emotional attachment to the victim, to the country that dictator is kind of fighting against, then it even increases the probability. And like throughout the whole Putin career, when even he just became like president of Russia, he tried to subjugate, impose his will on Ukraine, and he failed like every time. And like the only success probably was with Crimea, but then like 2004 there was a revolution. I was there, and he supported the candidate. The guy failed, so he was really frustrated. And then like the gas war, and he partly succeeded, but at the huge cost of like Gazprom economics. So he lost multiple contracts because of what he was trying to do in Ukraine. And so like he tried 5 times to like there are different scenarios how he, like one of them was the revolution of dignity, right? Well, he said he sent here like secret police and troops that try to kick out the protesters, and he failed. So he said, okay, yeah, I'm head this Ukraine, and I'm gonna crush it, and he fails again.
So it's kind of like hitting on some girls who's not interested and then getting obsessed with her and chasing her for multiple years until you arrest her.
Yeah, and all your buddies say, yeah, this is a great idea. Yeah, you should do that. Because like you kicked out or imprisoned all the buddies that said that this was a bad idea just because you are like 20 years in power and you don't care, you dictate.
Right, before the war, I heard that Kyiv was full of Russian agents who were just saying, oh yeah, if you invade, the Ukrainians can't wait for you to liberate them, they can't stand the government, they're gonna kneel down and surrender instantly. And
yeah. And it's also like, you know, this activity where you're a dictator, everybody says yes, and it's all fake. So one guy, Medvedchuk, who was a member of parliament here, and kind of had a lot of Putin money, and he sent him these reports that yeah, everybody in Ukraine loves you, and yeah, you're gonna like people would say would greet the army with flowers, and they were all fake, and he spent like hundreds of millions on that. So like fake propaganda or like fake reports. Instead, he bought himself a yacht. So yeah, and corruption, you know, like corruption of Putin's corruption helps Ukraine, something like that.
Are you worried about Xi Jinping, Erdogan, who just got re-elected? You know, these guys have been in power a long time. They'll probably take measures to secure their power very long term. Does that mean that you expect them to start some kind of war in a few years' time once their 20 years in power have clocked up?
Yeah, well...
I mean, not your primary concern right now because you're in Ukraine and we're getting bombed, but...
Yeah. I don't know, like Turkey is very important country in the region. If you can look, so Turkey is the most stable Muslim country, I guess, in this hemisphere.
Right.
So if you compare all the other Muslim countries, and they're more shaky, probably, and have more problems than probably Turkey, and that's how it's our like big neighbor, and it balances against us and Russia, but also like works with us. This is interesting. And China, this probably like the third term actually means for life.
Right.
So yeah, we will see. But the dynamics of how this whole like person in power doesn't have doesn't have limits on its power, and how this dynamics plays out is looking similar in Xi's in Xi's version. Yeah.
And to what extent do you have a fatalistic approach to geopolitics, or to what extent do you think we can change the trajectory of geopolitics? Because
No, I guess like Ukraine actually changed it. So
Right.
so when the war started, I have this thing when I have like really big questions in life. Probably somebody have written an English a book in English about it. So I just started looking for that. So what I found, I told you about Peter Zion. So it was 2014. I found a book in 2010 that said that Russia will attack Ukraine in between 2020 and 2030. And then the other book about generations, that there's going to be some kind of war and problems in the US, like that we see right now. These books are from the 90s, and they actually kind of came about true. And then the earliest book that I found was from 1988. It's like called Long Cycles by Joshua Goldstein, and it's a kind of scientific book that looks at the long cycles and how hegemonies like power dissipates over time for various reasons. And so they predicted that from 2020 to 2030, the power of US will decrease enough for there would be a competitor, and competitor usually starts war. And they said that probably that competitor would be the country that kind of won the last big war but failed in peace.
Right.
And that was USSR. So nobody thought about Russia back then. They thought about USSR. And so in this book they say that USSR would invade Europe around this time. And that actually, I mean, like, how about making a prediction in 30 years, right? And and in all the books like that kind of discuss this, Ukraine loses.
Right.
So, because yeah, people just calculate, 140 million people, 40 million Ukrainians, yeah, that's it. And I hope, and I feel, and I'm working like every day for us not to lose, and I think we will win. And probably we have changed history. The world would be much less secure if had we not have this opportunity to talk to you here right now, like with me. So I wouldn't probably be here if the invasion succeeded, and yeah, I would be in exile or dead. And so this is how, like the whole testimony of how like history can change with your own actions.
They're doing their best to stop us talking. I mean, I was sitting outside Bimbo Cafe, bizarrely named cafe, but really nice place on Pushinska Street at 11 a.m. yesterday when the air raid alert went off, and then a few moments later I heard these amazingly loud explosions.
Yeah.
And this was the anti-air defense knocking out the ballistic missiles from the sky. If any of those missiles landed, I think any one of those can take out like a city block or something like this. So yeah, they're doing their best to stop these conversations happening. It's amazing that we've got the anti-air defense to stay alive, basically.
And the thing about this, I'm wondering, like looking at it right now, how effective it is. It is really strange that we had them, like we have them now. So like for the last month and a half, right? And the whole bombing campaign started in autumn, and it it demolished. No, like Max calculates that, but like it demolished like tens of billions of dollars. And I guess like the whole defense is much cheaper than these like demolished buildings and energy infrastructure. And right now, what people are doing, they helping us to rebuild this energy infrastructure. So I still don't get it. Why couldn't we get this air defense a bit earlier? But that's great that it's working right now. Like 95-99% hit rate. It is much more secure. And I even started to forget, like how it was in like a year ago in Kyiv, where you kind of bracing for impacts, and they actually landed here and some near my house. And I said, okay. And right now it's just air defense and almost no casualties, which is good.
And you've stayed in Ukraine during the whole war, obviously.
Yeah.
You also have young kids. Like, how do you talk to your kids about things like missile attacks?
Well, they sing songs about how bad Russia is and how Ukraine will win. And we had a small vacation in Carpathians like last year in the summer, and I have a video of my kid. She goes and thinks like, you know, there's this very picturesque Carpathian mountains, and she just go there, and for whatever reason she just sings this song that kind of Ukraine will win, Russia will lose, just out of her mind. And this is very good. I don't know. They feel okay. They don't feel threatened. They understand. They ask why it's happening and say, yeah, that this country wants to kill us. And that they kind of not happy about it. It's a very, I don't know, like Buddhistic attitude.
Well,
Like,
wow, okay.
Chill.
Are they inspired? Okay, the people watching this can't see this. Are they inspired by your Japanese tattoos? Are your tattoos Buddhist tattoos?
Yeah, no, it's just like my tattoos are fish and peony flowers. So
Okay.
no, nothing special. But yeah, they like before so like Japanese one, they cover a lot of your skin. And first of all, they do the lines, right? And so you just get the lines without the coloring.
Okay.
And that's how at one time my daughter came to me and she said, okay, yeah, I have the stuff. So we bought something for her to, I don't know, to go for a party, something
Yeah,
like
like
that.
face
Yeah,
paint.
face paint, yeah, okay. And they painted it all, and it was really nice. And then like when the tattoo master asked about the colors, I have the picture of the colors. It's done by the kids, so yeah.
Well, so actually, wait, the colors your kids chose are the
Yeah,
colors
yeah.
that ended up on your arm?
Yeah, they didn't choose it. They actually kind of, you know, like put all the colors there. It was really like good, and yeah, they just replicated the photo. Yeah, yeah.
Okay, last question to sum up. It might be quite a long one, but when you said that all of these books that accurately predicted a conflict in this decade did not predict that Ukraine would win, I can think of, for instance, one small, maybe slight coincidental factor that helps Ukraine be successful so far, which is you have this quite unusual president, you know, who has a background in TV. But then the other day, Alex Rodnyansky was saying maybe a more conventional politician who was more of an academic might have left Kyiv at the start of the war. And they might have had a good reason for that, or put forward a good reason like, look, it's important that government functions normally. We can't do this when we're under threat. We're going to run the Ukrainian government from Poland. And then maybe Ukraine would have been discouraged. So that's, I suspect that helped the Ukrainian morale a lot, that the president stayed in Kyiv and would do daily broadcasts. But what's your explanation for how Ukraine is defying expectations? I mean, what are the things you would list as the ways in which Ukraine is subverting history? Or is this just like Ukrainian resilience, like all the Ukrainians I know are super tough, who I wouldn't mess with, and I'm pleased they're my friends and not my enemies? I mean, is that what the historians didn't factor in?
I don't know. Like I wouldn't say that we're actually super tough. It's just you know, the people are very chill and friendly, and but they just don't like for someone to come here and kill us. You know, like you don't like that, and it is a big part of the success of standing up against Russia is what Zelensky did. That actually showed. It didn't just show, you know, like Ukrainians that that we can stay here and, you know, like fight, but also like the world, because people were reluctant to give us weapons for various reasons, like in Afghanistan, right? So there are lots of weapons right now in Talib hands. So and he gave it by his example. The other thing is that Ukrainians are very inventive, and we're like getting used to it in all the different areas. And I guess that's the thing. And it's also very, like I talked about the decentralization. So this is the thing, people take care of themselves, and they also like, what those two revolutions taught us is that Ukrainians, like under stress, they could really assemble this type of organizations, ad hoc ones, and like networks, and then work together for a common goal. And people start trusting each other like really a lot. during this time. Everybody said, okay, yeah, and we're in the war, so these people started volunteering. These people went into the army. It's like like ants. So it is very, very like social structures formed, and they're much more potent than Russian top-down. I tell you this, and that because they're flexible. Like they assemble here and there. So I guess that this thing saved us.
Like decentralized intelligence is more efficient than the centralized power.
Yeah, definitely, yeah.
If you like this video, like and share so that other people can discover it, and subscribe and turn on notifications so that you can see new releases when they come out. And if you'd like to pay for my travel into a war zone, support Operation Tiggy on Patreon. I'm also hiring a local team, so this creates employment in a country that's had its economy badly hit by the war.